In hindsight, I recognized that my workaholism was also driven by reward deficiency syndrome. Reward deficiency syndrome refers to a dopamine dysfunction in the brain of people who are ADHD that leads to this constant need for stimulation. And rather than indulging in the more dangerous or risky forms of stimulation like drug use, I treated work as a form of supply. If I could be extra efficient and extra productive, I would get a little kick. And I was also indulging in my neurodivergent passions, like writing. I became so fixated on being productive that I very rarely wanted to rip this dopamine drip out. I was getting a constant supply of stimulation and therefore fulfillment from the task, even as my social life continued to founder. I was still clinging to this idea that I was somehow going to make it and become successful and recognized by others as worthy of praise and celebration, and that this would translate to social acceptance and material acceptance. Never mind that in the interim, I was still very isolated and still very lonely, and I felt perpetually misunderstood and like I was cosmically condemned to a life of solitude. It didn't help that I still didn't understand the ins and outs of human relationships, or that other people, while I longed for their presence, could be confusing to me. They could also be very annoying. I have misophonia, which is a sensitivity to human noises. So being around people, I can only do for certain amounts of time. And I also have a very small social battery, so it can get sapped from just an hour or 2 hours of social interaction. I still didn't have a diagnosis, and I still didn't understand why I was struggling with these things. The only way of understanding it that I had was negative messages I'd had from caregivers and other people in society, that I was antisocial, that I was too sensitive, that I was too intolerant, that I hated people, which I don't think was necessarily true. And I also think it was an overgeneralization and mischaracterization of the nature of my struggles. Once I had a diagnosis, I could reframe all of this, but until then, there was something wrong with me as I saw it. I kind of yo-yoed between this and other people are too sensitive to my remarks, that they're weird and don't make sense, that they don't like to hear the truth, that they are inherently deceptive, that they're dishonest, they're hypocritical, that they have double standards, as is often perceived by people who are neurodivergent and are straight shooters in how they act and perceive the world. And adding to this was my struggles understanding my sexual identity. I knew I was gay, but I also didn't have a label for how my sexuality would express itself. Now I see myself as demisexual, gray ace, ace flux, and I didn't have labels for these things. And even though I had the label for being gay,